Welcome to the dark side of BEASTwriter. I'm your host, Ryan Sakamoto, and today we're going to be discussing the Kansas City Chiefs and the Las Vegas Raiders game grades. I'm going to go ahead and break it down brick by brick as to how I saw the team playing on the defense side of the football. Now, before we go ahead and get started, I just want to say mahalo to each and every one of you for subscribing to my channel. Picked up some traffic and late last night on my YouTube channel. Obviously, if you guys haven't saw the feature that I did with Sanjeet yesterday, news, I'll be going ahead and working with him for Las Vegas Chronicle as well as the Sporting Tribune. So picked up two outlets now that I'll be working under as far as covering the Las Vegas Raiders. So we're really kind of moving the needle here as we hit our midseason stride. So again, thank you for each and every one of you for, again, supporting and loving the dark side of BEASTwriter. I really appreciate the love and support that I've been receiving over the course of my first year covering the Las Vegas Raiders. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, I watched the game film of every single snap. That's how I run my game grades. And again, how I like to do business, if you guys are new to follow me, which I picked up some subscribers late last night, is I do run grades around the league. And when I mean around the league, I mean I cover all 32 teams. When I mean I cover all 32 teams, I mean I cover all 32 teams. So I run game grades. I watch coaches film. And then you pick up on tendencies and biases going into the weekly matchup. So it's really a good indicator as far as I am concerned and how I do business, because if I'm going to criticize or praise a player, I better have the decency and respect for the player to grade every single snap and sit down and grade that snap. So again, a lot of legwork goes into it. When I run game grades on a specific player or a specific team, it can take anywhere from 2 to 3, even sometimes 4 hours, depending on the duration of the game and how these teams kind of scheme up their splits and so forth on the back end, because there's a lot of different rules of engagements. And if you don't understand those rules of engagements, you're really going to miss on what's going on. For instance, if it's a cover 3, it's not a simple cover 3. It could be cover 3 sky, could be cover 3 buzz, could be cover 3 cloud. And then on top of that, on the underneath defenders, when you're defending a curl flat, there's also rules of engagements based on the 1, 2, 3 concept on whatever the scheme that the offense side is running. So again, there's a lot of different dynamics that go into the grading system. So we're not going to waste any more time. I just wanted to break it down for you guys because I do have grades on the top players around the league, especially important players who I feel are important, whether it be rookies, like guys like Sauce Gardner, guys like from the Detroit Lions, like Aiden Hutchinson, guys like David Ojabo. He's a guy who hasn't played yet, right? He got hurt in the pre-draft process, but he's coming up for the Baltimore Ravens, graded him back in college. So a lot of different guys are kind of stepping up to the plate, and it's going to formulate the defensive schemes for these teams, because at the end of the day, you didn't draft these guys to be riding the pine, right? You drafted these guys to be playing and being the next man up, and hopefully they can get their wheels set in motion as they hit the midseason stride as we head into week 6. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, thank you, everyone. All right, so the Monday Night Football game, it was a game where, I mean, for the second time, they blew a double-digit lead. I'm not going to go too much into it and dive too much into it because we all know what happened at the end of the day. But unfortunately, the Raiders came a little bit short, put up a valiant effort, talked about it yesterday on my Pick 6 segment. But I thought they did a really good job, right? There's a lot of good things that they did well. And the way I like to do things here in the DOB is, we can talk about the bad things all we want. Oh, this guy sucks. That guy's horrible. They didn't do this right. Fire Coach McDaniels, which is stupid. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say it's dumb. Like, anyone who says fire coach is, you probably never played the game in life. Like, you don't understand the concepts of exactly what they're teaching, what they're preaching. So for you to say, oh man, bring back John Gruden or do this, do that. It's like, nah, man, like, what are you talking about? Let's keep it 100. So again, we're going to go ahead and talk about it. All right. So let's start with the defensive front seven. I graded this defense side of the football. Obviously, I have the offense side as well, but let's start with the defense side of the football. When you start with the nose tackle in any base defense, would be 3-4 front, 4-3 front, you have that nose tackle or that 3 technique, whatever the case may be, based on the pre-snap alignment. I thought Andrew Billings has been playing extremely well through week 5. He doesn't get enough credit, but he takes on a lot of the double teams, freeing up guys like even guys like Bilal Nichols, who plays alongside a lot of times, right? Number 91, who's also playing at a dang near Pro Bowl level, which I expected, right? People didn't know who Bilal Nichols is, but I ran grades dating back to COVID. And I said, this guy coming out of Delaware is going to be the truth, right? 5th round pick. And graded him while with the Chicago Bears, along with Angelo Blackson, Mario Edwards. You can go down the list with Khalil Mack, Who else did they have during that time? A lot of good players, right? I believe Alec Ogletree was on that team, if I'm not mistaken, number 44. Correct me if I'm wrong. But then, you look at these guys and you're saying, man, these guys kind of jump out on film. Bilal Nichols, getting him for 2 years, $11 million, is GM Dave Ziegler is really reaping the benefits. I mean, he's playing at a Pro Bowl level in terms of being a run stuffer. Now, he's not going to bring too much of a presence as a pass rush specialist, double-digit sack artist, but that's not his game. That's not what they ask him to do. Same thing along the lines with Andrew Billings. So I thought they did a really good job. In fact, when I ran the grades against the Kansas City Chiefs, this is what I saw. Andrew Billings graded out at a 9 out of 10. All right, 9 out of 10 is all pro level. Now, again, Andrew Billings, just like Bilal Nichols, do not get a grade for pass rush because that's not their forte. That's not what they're asked to do. So even if they did pick up a sack, I would neutralize that number simply because the sample size to pull from is slim to none. Just like Clee Farrell, right? Like Clee Farrell played in this game, but would it be fair to assess a pass rush grade on him based on the limited snaps that he played in? I don't think so. I think that's unfair. So in order to justify the grade that I have, Andrew Billings gets a 9 strictly as a 2-down run stuffer. Did a really good job. The same goes with Bilal Nichols, who graded slightly below. He had one run fit integrity mishap, but other than that, played a very clean game. I thought Bilal Nichols is the most underrated free agent acquisition that the Raiders have this year outside of Rock Ya-Sin. So, and I'm going to talk about Rock Ya-Sin. I think this guy's playing at an all-pro level. So when you talk about guys like these that GM Dave Ziegler is bringing in, but not too many people are talking about. These guys aren't household names. You guys got to remember, these guys are not household names, right? Bilal Nichols is not a household name. Rock Ya-Sin is not a household name. He may be a former first-round pick, but GM Chris Ballard, when he drafted him, he wasn't really a household name. Let's not get it twisted, right? And so when you look at guys that they have, that GM Dave Ziegler is bringing in and the personnel that they're bringing in and how they're utilizing their strengths and then not focusing on their weakness, but instead amplifying their strengths, you're really looking at it from a top-down approach and from the coaching perspective and saying, man, this team gets it, man. This coaching staff gets it. And so I think that's why these players are benefiting. They're benefiting from good coaching, and and as players, they're benefiting because they're going to get paid. Look, these guys are going to get paid, all right, because they're playing at a really high all-pro level. Bilal Nichols graded at a 7.5, right, that I just mentioned. All right, now we go back to the edge rushers, right? The edge rushers is something that in this game, I saw a lot of good, strong edge rushing presence. You talk about Max Crosby, graded at a 10 out of a 10 in my grading system, a perfect 10. I mean, Max Crosby, and if you guys follow me on Twitter, he's graded number 1 now in my grading system of all edge rushers around the league. Going into week 4, or I should say going into week 5, it was Khalil Mack at 8.9. Max Crosby came in at 8.8. With that 10 grading of a perfect 10 in run support and pass rush, he leapfrogged Khalil Mack at 9.0. Now, I still have to run the grades for the Chargers game, but he comes in at 8.9, as in Khalil Mack. So I have to run grades on those guys, J.C. Jackson, Asante Samuel Jr., guys like Derwin James. I have to run these grades on those guys. And Tranquil, there's a lot of different guys that I have to grade up front. Sebastian Joseph Day, we can go down the list, all right? Cool story, bro. But no, getting back to it, Max Crosby's playing at a first-team all-pro level. All right, we all know he's an all-pro. He's earning every penny he gets, both on and off the football field. And if I was to put him in top 5 conversation, I wouldn't be there would be no hesitation in putting him in top 5 conversation as a top 5 edge rusher. And he's getting paid like a top 5 edge rusher, and he's producing like a top 5 edge rusher, right? So I'm going to go ahead and talk about that, right? Let's go ahead and talk about that a little bit, right? So what do I mean by that? Like, how is he a top 5 edge rusher? Like, what do I see in Max Crosby's game that makes him a top 5 edge rusher, right? Like, okay, cool story. Like, we watch Raiders games. That's my job. I watch the Raiders game. It's not my job to cover 31 other NFL teams, but I like doing it because in order for me to really come on this live stream and really talk about and have conviction of a player like Max Crosby and say, this guy's the best of the best, cream of the crop, I have to do the legwork on the other players. Otherwise, there is nothing to compare to. Like, for me to go on and be like, oh yeah, go to the box score and be like, oh yeah, Max Crosby has 6 sacks. Well, okay, and Alex Highsmith has 6 sacks. So where do the two line up? Well, it comes down to run fit integrity, comes down to grading the snap, comes down to a lot of different dynamics when you run these grades of a player. So getting back to Alex Highsmith, who I've been running grades since he came in as a 3rd-round pick, he's playing at a really high level. He looks a little bit heavier, right? And last year, he's working on his get off and reading his keys. How do I know that? Because I freaking watch press conferences of teams around the league. This is what I do. And obviously, I covered the Steelers back in 2019 for Sports Illustrated. So that's kind of where I started my grind. But, truth be told, guys like these, in comparison, they don't compare to Max Crosby. Like, Max Crosby is just built different, bro. Like, I'm just saying, Max Crosby is built different. I like his nonstop effort, his high motor. He's doing a lot better than he did last year in terms of run fit integrity. And not saying he was bad last year. He was good at run fit integrity last year as well. But run fits are down to a science now, which is crazy. He's making plays backside pursuit. And if you really run the grades on Max Crosby and really run the numbers on grading every single snap, he's graded, like I said, 9 out of 10 this year. Number 1 edge rusher in my rankings. 4 tackles for no gain. 5 tackles for loss for minus 12 yards of hidden yardage. All right. I'm just running the numbers based on my grading system. 7.5 tackle wins versus the run. All right. Tackle wins are very important because it limits what you can do on third downs, right? You win first and second down. Usually they're going to run the football. Depend on the team, but let's for layman's terms, right? And then the money downs, obviously passing down, right? So he has 7.5 tackle wins there. 5 quarterback pressures, 3 quarterback hits, 2 pass breakups at the line of scrimmage when rushing the passer, 6 sacks for minus 54 yards of hidden yardage. That's a huge number, by the way. Some players, even all pro players, guys like Cam Hayward, don't even rack up minus 54 yards of hitting yardage in the full season, but still rack up 7-8 sacks. All right, so it's very interesting to see the dynamic and to generate the pass rush that Max Crosby is really applying the pressure despite not getting help from the other side. All right, this is not throwing shade at Chandler Jones, but I'm just going to get to him in a little bit. I know he has a veteran leadership presence about him, but we need to see more. Talked about it with my guy Sanjit on his YouTube channel late last night. I'm telling you guys right now. All right, so we're going to go ahead and talk about Chandler Jones, who I graded with the Arizona Cardinals, had a torn bicep. So yeah. All right, but getting back to it. 1 forced fumble for Max Crosby. The guy's playing lights out. Now you compare that to a guy like Chandler Jones, who gets paid $17 million APY, which is the 11th highest paid edge defender in the NFL. What does his numbers compare? Well, let's run the numbers, right? Let's grade the snap. All right, 4 tackles for no gain, right? For Max Crosby in run support. Only 1 for Chandler Jones. And by the way, who's getting the focal point of the attention? Is it Chandler Jones or Max Crosby? Who's getting chipped at the line of scrimmage? Is it Chandler Jones mostly, or is it Max Crosby? Where is the line shifting their protection to? Max Crosby or Chandler Jones? All this provides help in the weighted grading scale in my system, right? You gotta know what to look for. And still, Max Crosby's getting it done. The production is still there. That's a dominant player, all right? So Chandler Jones, who I think is not bad. I think he's average, right? He's playing at an average level in my grading system. I'm going to break it down. But let's go ahead and compare the numbers. 5 tackles for loss for minus 12 for Max Crosby compared to 1.5 tackles for loss for minus 4 yards for Chandler Jones. I mean, that's a discrepancy of 4 versus 1. All right. So again, it's not even half. It's more than half. All right. 2.5 tackle wins for Chandler Jones compared to 7.5 for Max Crosby. Again, more than half. All right. Quarterback pressures. All right. It's about even matchup. 5 for Max Crosby, 4 for Chandler Jones. All right. Quarterback hits. About even. Actually, exactly even. 3 quarterback hits for Max Crosby, 3 quarterback hits for Chandler Jones. But consistency is key in the NFL, and Chandler Jones is just simply not getting enough pressure to help, which is amazing because Max Crosby's getting these numbers and still being the focal point of offensive schemes. And so it's really amazing how he's still generating that much push. Now, I'm not saying Chandler Jones is a bad player. I see some tweets saying, they need to get rid of him and so forth. But I did say it may be a mistake. Getting a guy and paying him $17 million APY for a player who's graded out in my system at a 5.2 out of a 10 compared to a 9 out of a 10 for Max Crosby, there is some discrepancy. Now, we all know what we all know what Chandler Jones does best. It's rushing the passer. It's not so much in run fit integrity. But I will say this. I do think Chandler Jones is turning the corner. I do think he's going to play extremely well going into the bye week and then going up against the Texans. In the next 3-4 games, I think Chandler Jones is going to pick up 3-4 sacks. And I say that with no doubt in my mind because, again, I run grades on the offensive line of the other teams, and I know how they're going to play their – I shouldn't say I know because it's not like, oh, yeah, I'm in the room. But I have an idea of how they're going to play Chandler Jones. And Chandler Jones is going to have a lot of one-on-one matchups, and he's going to be a lot of these one-on-one matchups because he's going against inferior talent. So Chandler Jones is probably going to rack up at least 3-4 sacks in the next 4 or 5 games. That's just my estimation. And then people will kind of downplay the hype that, oh man, Chandler Jones is maybe coming along. You have NFL Network, ESPN putting him up. Oh yeah, Chandler Jones is on a tear. But let's be honest. If you look at Chandler Jones, he'll have 4, 5, 6 sacks in one game. I'm exaggerating on the 4, 5, 6 or 5, 6, but you guys get the picture. He'll have a game where he'll just dominate, and people will, oh man, this is a Hall of Famer, and then he'll disappear for the next 6. So for me, you have to take it with a grain of salt. Yes, Chandler Jones is a good pass rusher, but is he a great two-way player? I'm not so sure about that, but he can rush the passer, and I do think he's going to help that defense immensely, right? So in the grading system against the Kansas City Chiefs, he graded out at a 7 out of 10, which is a Pro Bowl level. So he did play at a Pro Bowl level against the Kansas City Chiefs despite not picking up a sack. In fact, he had 2 quarterback pressures and 1 quarterback hit in that ball game. So for me to warrant that grade, you have to create pressure, and that pressure has to result in a loss of down or a negative play for the offense. And he did that 3 times in that ball game. In fact, he also did a very nice job in his run fit integrity, made some nice plays at or near behind the line of scrimmage. So Chandler Jones, if you're watching, man, I do think you're going to be a good player for the Las Vegas Raiders. I do think you're coming along. I do think your engine's coming along. And like I said, whether or not Chandler Jones can stay consistent is another thing, but we do know that he is kind of finding his midseason stride, and I think that's very positive as the Raiders go into the bye week, because now you're going into the bye week. You have fresh legs. You're coming out of it playing the Houston Texans, who aren't very good to begin with, but although they, to be honest with you, they're not as bad as people make them out to be. But again, their offensive line is not the best. So when you have guys like Chandler Jones and Max Crosby screaming off the edge, and then you still have Andrew Billings and Bilal Nichols taking up those double teams and eating up those double team pressures, that's going to leave one-on-ones for Chandler Jones, especially on those tackle and stunts or whatever the case may be that Coach Graham tries to dial up. So again, there's a lot of different things that you can look for when it comes to playing the Houston Texans and moving forward for Chandler Jones. But again, going back to the game grades, this is what I see. This is what I see when I grade the Las Vegas Raiders defense, right? This is what I see when I grade their first and second levels, that defensive front 7, which is the most important part of any defense. And I'm a firm believer in that. If I was the GM, I would build the team from the inside out, not the outside in. In fact, I would solidify the offensive line. I would solidify the defensive front 7, and just the priority, unless you're a shutdown cornerback like a Jalen Ramsey or Pat Surtain or someone like this, I would then work on the back end. So that's how I'm a firm believer in that, in building teams from the inside out, not the outside in, because if you can't win down in the trenches, it doesn't matter what kind of skill players you have. It doesn't matter what kind of shutdown corners you have if you can't get pressure up front and you can't move people off their grass on the flip side of the football. So again, there's a lot of different things we can talk about. I just like talking football. All right. So getting back to it, we have What's Up G says, now that the Renfro is back, the offense seems to be clicking a little. Do you think Renfro is the reason, or was it some other change? I think it's, to be honest with you, if I'm being quite honest and running the game film and watching the offense, it's the Coach McDaniels is doing something different. He had an extra lineman in there most times, and that was rookie Thayer Munford on the right side. So even though Thayer Munford did not start at right tackle, he was in there a lot. In fact, they also ran a lot of 12 personnel, which is 21 personnel, which is 2 backs, 1 tight end sets, right? Anytime you run 21 personnel with Jakob Johnson there, and I formation or split formations, whatever the case may be on the back end, offset I, whatever the case may be, power eye, doesn't matter. He's really doing a good job, and he's actually doing what the San Francisco 49ers did with Jim Harbaugh. Remember when Daniel Kilgore was there, he was using that elephant position role. So he was kind of used as an extra offensive lineman. Daniel Kilgore was early on in his career, when Frank Gore and Kendall Hunter and guys like these were able to really solidify the rush under Greg Roman. You see that same type of power-based run scheme with Coach McDaniels. And I think that kind of benefits the Raiders, because now they can try to shorten the game, right? Win time of possession, keep opposing offenses off the football field, and really get a good sample size to pull from when you're going into next season. Because again, this is an evaluation process for GM Dave Ziegler. If you don't start Thayer Munford and just have him ride the pine, okay, then how do you know what you have for next season? You don't. So let's just roll him out as an extra offensive lineman because we're going to be running the football anyways. That's our game plan going into the game against the Kansas City Chiefs, which is most people's game plan, unless you're the Los Angeles Chargers or Buffalo Bills who have a high octane offense and can kind of play in this shootout. You're going to want to go ahead and win the time of possession and shorten the game. And so I thought they did a really good job on that game plan. So whether Hunter Renfrow helped, absolutely. I mean, he takes away a lot of the underneath. You have to account for him on every single count, every single snap. He's a top 5 slot wide receiver. But at the end of the day, for me, it came down to Coach McDaniels really applying the pressure and allowing Josh Jacobs, who I believe is a top 5 running back, if given the opportunity, to be the workhorse. And I know he wasn't given that 5th-year option last year. I was kind of sad about that, being a Roll Tide Roll fan, but I see how that's not the Patriot way because you can find running backs late in the draft. They also drafted Zeus White in the 4th round out of Georgia. So you can kind of see their logic in how they want to play this. Josh Jacobs, to me, though, is so invaluable because let's be honest, if Josh Jacobs wasn't the running back, are we going to place 100% trust in Zeus White to kind of keep up, right? A lot of the yards after initial contact were made by Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs, yes, the offensive line did a very good job. Very good job. But Josh Jacobs on that 2nd and 3rd levels was just dominating people. Like he was initiating contact. He was breaking off tackles for long runs. He was gaining extra valuable yards and really applying the pressure, right? And if you play a running back like that, if you play the game of football, you know if you're facing a running back like Josh Jacobs, he's going to bring it for all 4 quarters. And by the end of the 3rd quarter, you're gassed because you're bruised up, you're depleted, you don't have enough electrolytes to sustain the game because you've been hit all those times. There is not enough ammo for you to go up against a guy like Josh Jacobs for all 4 quarters. He's just going to he's the hammer and you're the nail, basically, right? As one coach would put it to me, right? You want to be the hammer or the nail? You choose. I'd rather be the freaking hammer, sledgehammer. I ain't going to be the nail. Josh Jacobs is the hammer to the Raiders offense. He's the engine that makes it go. If you don't have an offense that can sustain a nice running game, rushing attack in the AFC West, it's all for naught. The AFC West is a high octane offense. Okay, outside of Denver Broncos, who arguably are the worst offense ever. Joking, but not really joking. It's just really surprising because they have Jerry Jeudy, one of the best route runners in the game. They have Cortland Sutton. They have KJ Hamp. Anyways, I don't know what's going on with there. But they did lose Garrett Bowles to the season, blindside left tackle. But you know, the Chargers, right? Even without Keenan Allen, they still have Mike Williams, still have Austin Eckler, still have a lot of guys who Palmer. They still have Palmer who can get it done. So they have weapons, right? They have weapons. Same thing, obviously, Kansas City Chiefs, we just saw. Even though Travis Kelce just annihilated the Las Vegas Raiders for 4 touchdowns, all red zone within 10 yards. And I'm going to talk about that in the grading system and who was actually responsible for those touchdowns. But you can't really blame Coach Graham. He actually did a lot of different things. In fact, he did one thing when watching the coaches film that he never did this year. He never did this year. Never is an absolute, but he never did this year. He never rolled coverage to one player specifically pre-snap. He might do it post-snap, but not from pre-snap. He had both safeties traveling and covering Travis Kelce. And I thought that was interesting. Would it be Trevon Merrick or Duron Harmon? So I thought that was really interesting, and they still couldn't find an answer for him. So you can't blame Coach Graham for it. He tried to make the adjustments. It just wasn't working. Like, I'm not going to put it on Coach Graham. Now, if Coach Graham just played cover 1 all the way through and didn't apply help over the top, or whether it be inside outside leverage, then that'd be like, okay, man, like that's on you, Coach. But it's not on Coach Graham. It's definitely not on Coach Graham. I don't know why people say it's on Coach Graham. It's not on Coach Graham. Watch the film. Watch the film. All right, so who's overrated and who's underrated, right? So we're going to finish the game. I thought Divine Diablo did a very good job in this Monday Night Football game. He's really coming on. Spoke with Coach Graham about Divine Diablo early in the year, and he says that's one guy that we really need, that I need in my defense, basically, right? He's like, that's the type of guy. Again, he's a Virginia Tech safety converted to inside linebacker, really doing a nice job and really coming into his own. And I have to be honest with you. It's not an easy transition coming from safety to linebacker. You know, the same thing applies with Jonathan Abram. People, let's just move strong safety John Abram and down inside the box and it'll be easy. No, why? Because if you look at around the league, look at guys like Devin White, right? He's a middle linebacker, off-ball linebacker, right? one of the best in the game, right? I run grades, right? One of the best in the game. But what happens when the offensive linemen lock horns with him? He gets pushed back and dialed back 5-7 yards. He doesn't slip the block because he can't, because he's not strong enough. He's not big enough. He's fast enough. He's explosive, but he doesn't have that. Same thing applies when you tried to do the same concept earlier. What was it, back in the early 2000s under Mike Singletary with Taylor Mays, who they tried to convert from a strong side safety out of USC to a linebacker. It didn't work. It doesn't work all the time. It's not like a mere mix and match and be like, oh, let's just plug him here. It's not as easy. Why? Because what you give up by downsizing the strong safety down inside the box, you're giving up in run support, right? Because more times than not, that extra box defender who's lighter in the hips, lighter in the butt, is going to be moved off his grasp more times than not because he doesn't have the strength to hold the point of attack. He's not putting up 25, 27 reps on 225. He's maybe putting up 7, 12. I'm exaggerating. For a strong safety, you should put up at least 12 to 15 reps, and that's my warm up. But I mean, for some players, that's it for them, right? 225, 12, 15. Okay, cool story, bro. Good. But even then, does that even equate to functional strength? Again, how is your lower half? How do you play that? Like you can lift all you want, but if you can't disengage, ID the ball carrier from box to spill, you're in trouble. So I thought Divine Diablo did a very good job against the Kansas City Chiefs. He graded at a 7.7 out of a 10, 7.8, rounding up, 7.8 out of a 10, all pro level. All right. Denzel Perryman was a guy who no one really is talking about, but is a 2-down thumper. I thought he did a really good job in the Kansas City Chiefs game, graded at a 7.0, a Pro Bowl level. All right. So you talk about underrated players. I think Divine Diablo is one of those guys that's coming into his own. I think it was a blessing. I know this is not a knock on anyone, but I think Jayon Brown is obviously a liability in pass coverage. In my grading system, he's a liability in pass coverage coming from the Tennessee Titans. I think it was a blessing in disguise that he wasn't playing because it gave guys like Divine Diablo, gave guys like Denzel Perryman, and again, Jonathan Hankins too. He's not as strong in run support as what I anticipated. I liked how they rolled with how they had no choice but to roll with Neil Farrell. I thought Neil Farrell played extremely well, graded at a 9.5 out of a 10 with the limited sample size to pull from. Neil Farrell is a guy who I think they should be playing anyways over Jonathan Hankins, but that's just my opinion. Maybe I'm biased because one of my really good friends, Andre Carter, coached him, and Neil Farrell is and he called him a lighter Vince Wilfork, which by the way is like crazy comparison, but that's what he called him. That's what he labeled him, and he's not joking. So I think that Neil Farrell did a very good job in my grading system, graded at a 9.5 out of 10. But then you look at other guys, right? You look at guys like people say, oh, the defense did really well, even though they gave up, 30 points to the Kansas City. Yeah, they did really well. They just couldn't stop Travis Kelce down inside the red zone, down inside the 10, to be exact. All right, so there's a lot of different things here to look for. I think Jayon Brown's a little bit overrated. I think Divine Diablo is underrated. And I also believe that obviously Bilal Nichols and all those guys, I think they're underrated. They're too valuable. They're just really good. And then you look at the secondary, right? Nate Hobbs kind of struggled a little bit. I put this on Twitter. He did have a black soft cast on his left hand. I don't know if any of you guys noticed that, but I noticed it. I tweeted it out there and then talked about it with Sanjeet. And Sanjeet thought it was on before the game, but it wasn't. I watched the game film to confirm. I was initially, I said, no, I think it happened in the second half. And I wasn't too sure. So I was like, I'm not too sure, but let me just double check on that. Turns out I was right. So yeah, he came out in the fourth quarter with a soft cast on his left hand, really hurt his ability to make plays on the football, really hurt his ability to tackle. Now going into the bye week, that's something to look forward to because we don't know the exact extent of that injury or what exactly that injury entails. But let's be honest about this. You don't put on a soft cast in the fourth quarter for fashion, right? There's a reason why he was wearing that black soft cast on his left hand. And so that's something that I want to look forward to. I should have asked Coach McDaniels the question yesterday. I was like, nah, man, like I'm not going to ask because by the end of the bye week anyways, he'll probably be off or it'd be in a splint or something like that, depending on if it's a thumb or hand, but it's definitely a hand injury. It's not an arm injury. It's definitely a hand injury. Something happened there. So to put it in a soft cast, I don't know the extent of it, but you don't do that for fashion. Let's put it that way. But he kind of struggled a little bit, Nate Hobbs, and I fully expected him to struggle simply because, you're playing with a cast on your hand. Like you're not used to doing that. Like that's like how you're supposed to tackle, right? So he didn't do so well in the grading system, but I thought he fought well. But people are saying, well, was he injured? Like through tweeting me out, hey, is he injured? I was like, you know what? I just put up a tweet earlier that he has a soft cast on his left hand. Maybe that's kind of hurting his stock a little bit throughout this game. I don't know. It's all speculation because nothing has been reported as far as I know. I didn't get anything on it. So whether or not anyone else saw that, I don't know. I think I was the first one to see that. Or not, I shouldn't say the first. Or I'm the first one. I'm one of the first to see it because I didn't see anyone else tweeting anything out. So any of the beat writers or anything. Anyways, if that I saw. No, if someone did, kudos to them for finding it first. But yeah, I didn't see anyone. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not sure what's going on, but something is definitely going on there. Rocky Yassin, one of the most underrated players in free agency. I thought he was a guy that was a great trade, trading Yannick Ngakoue with GM Chris Ballard with the Indianapolis Colts. And then in exchange, they got Rocky Yassin, a former first-round pick out of Temple. Rocky Yassin is playing at a Pro Bowl level. All right. He didn't play because he had a knee strain last week. But he did play against the Kansas City Chiefs, and he played extremely well. Graded out as the highest-rated defensive back in my grading system at an 8 out of a 10. All right. In fact, he was only targeted in my grading system. See, I run the numbers. Like, oh, where do you come up with these numbers? He was only targeted 5 times. Well, actually, that's a good number. He was targeted 5 times, only 2 of those going for completions for a total of 9 yards. All right, total of 9 yards. He only gave up 9 yards in coverage, as opposed to Nate Hobbs, who was targeted 8 times, 7 of those going for completions for 119 yards. So he gave up the most yards in this ballgame. Nate Hobbs did for 119 yards. I don't blame him. I mean, it's hard. He was just gutting it out, but he did have some trouble. When you talk about the big plays in this ballgame, you can talk about, Nate Hobbs gave up 2 of those. One is to Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and the other one is to Mecole Hardman, and it was both in cover 1 shells. In fact, all the big plays of 20-plus went against cover 1 shells, and so Coach Graham dialed up a good game plan, a very aggressive game plan, but it did hurt them from time to time. Amik Robertson got beat by Mecole Hardman, and then Mecole Hardman is a 4-3 guy anyway, so it's hard. It's a tough task for anyone to stay with Mecole Hardman. But I thought all those players that I just mentioned did a really good job throughout the ball game. But when you dial up a cover 1, it's mono e mono. It's you're in cat coverage with help over the top, and usually that help over the top is really playing a split one way or the next based on the formation that he's seeing pre-snap, right? So he has to cheat one way or the other because he can't stay in the middle of the field and expect to make a play on the ball if it's from the numbers to the boundaries. So again, I thought they did a really good job. The defensive backs did a really good job overall in terms of limiting the big play, even though they gave up 3. All right. You're going up against a guy like Pat Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Mecole Hardman, Juju Smith-Schuster, who can take away the underneath. Really, really is a tough task for anyone to ask. All right. So the touchdowns are what's really getting to me. And so Coach Graham and I'm not gonna blame on Coach Graham. He did a lot of different things, but Travis Kelce getting wide open. The first one was against cover 0, and Trayvon Merrick was in coverage. Trayvon Merrick was the one that shadowed him majority of the game anyways. Trayvon Merrick also covered him on the second touchdown. It was a cover 1. Duron Harmon gave up the touchdown that I saw. Now I have to confirm on this one. I'm not so sure, but I have to check with some people. But it was against a cover 1. And then obviously the last one where he was wide open. Now I believe that was on Jonathan Abram. That was against a cover 0. And you can kind of tell based on where players were going and moving that I have to double check on this, but I think John Abram thought it was zone coverage. He was playing the curl flat instead of taking on Travis Kelce, who just ran a simple, not even square in, but I don't know what you call it, just freaking a drag route, right? Call it a simple 1-yard drag route. And so that's where he got open. So a lot of different things that went on to this, but yeah, getting open like that there's really no exception to it. Other than he's just hard to stop. The dude's hard to stop, and then there's no way to stop a guy like that. So let's go ahead and talk now that we wrapped up the game grades. Just for you guys, so you guys know, the inactives for this game were Britton Brown. He was a healthy scratch. Foster Moreau had a knee injury. Jonathan Hankins was out. Defensive tackle, rookie defensive tackle Matthew Butler with a healthy scratch. Jayon Brown had a hamstring injury. He was out, and Tayshawn Bauer was a healthy scratch. So again, it was interesting to see them roll different players in because now you're trying to formulate the roster for next year. You can kind of see them doing that without losing any production on the field, which is very smart. It's a really hard thing to do because you want to see some action from some of these younger guys. And if the season goes as it's going, you're going to see Tayshaun Bauer be active on game day, and you're going to see some of these other guys like maybe I don't know, name a player. I mean, we saw Javelin Guidry, for crying out loud, activated last week, right? And he was just brought up from the practice squad. So, I mean, you're seeing guys being brought up because they want to see what they have. Like, you don't know what you have. Like, you could be the greatest practice squad player, but if you're not producing on the field on game day, it doesn't mean much. Same thing applies if you're not doing well in practice, but you just shine on game days, then you're just a gamer, right? So it goes hand in hand. And so that's why I think it's very interesting when you see who's active and who's not active on game days, because then you can kind of say, that's interesting. And I'm keeping track of all this, by the way. I'm keeping track of all this, all for you guys. But no, I think Rock Ya-Sin is underrated. He's playing at a Pro Bowl level in my grading system. In fact, let me just go ahead and run the numbers for you guys. In my grading system, on a scale of 1 to 10, 5 being average, 6.5 to 7 is at a Pro Bowl level, 7.3 above is an all-pro level. He's playing at a 7.6, which is at an all-pro level. So if you look at the other defensive backs around the league, you look at guys like Jalen Ramsey. Well, he's graded at a 5.6, right? 5.6 to 7. So Rock Ya-Sin in my grading system is playing better than Jalen Ramsey. Now, am I saying that Rock Ya-Sin is better than Jalen Ramsey? Absolutely not. Jalen Ramsey is still my number one. That's not going to change based on because I grade him at 5.6 doesn't mean he's ranked at 5.6, right? So grading and ranking are two different parameters when it comes to my grading system. Pat Surtain playing at an 8.3. So he's the top rated cornerback in the league right now. And he was last year. In fact, he came in at number 3, right behind Tre'Davious White. But I did vote for Jalen Ramsey as a first team All-Pro because it's freaking Jalen Ramsey. And the guy just neutralizes one part of the football field, can shadow any wide receiver that he wants, and can win that matchup. But he is struggling this year. I will say that. He is kind of cheating a little bit, and it's kind of hurting him, right? It's kind of hurting him. So this year, I don't think Jalen Ramsey is going to get the pass, at least not yet. And we're already through 5 games. So what is it? 33% of the season's already in the books. I like Pat Surtain as the number 1 cornerback in the entire NFL. In fact, you look at guys like J.C. Jackson, who has been struggling with the LA Chargers, and now he has an ankle injury and tried to come back and then had to be deactivated because he couldn't come back in time, and then now he's activated. He's playing hurt. He looks like he appears to have lost a step. J.C. Jackson has, and he's graded at a negative 1.5. So that's negative 1.5 out of 10 is not good. Where last year he was graded at a first team All-Pro level in my grading system, right? And so he graded at a 7.9. In fact, he was graded as a top cornerback last year in my grading system at a 7.9 out of a 10. Now he comes in at a negative 1.5. You have to take a look at that, GM Tom Telesco, and be like, okay, what's going on here? You know, what's going on with my guy who I paid 5-year, $82.5 million contract to, right? $82.5 million, man. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of bread for a negative 1.5 guy. Maybe that's why Bill Belichick is one of the best GMs in the league. He's like, he's looking at, man, you can walk. You can walk. Go ahead. And they got Jack Jones, who I really liked, enjoying practice. Talked to some Patriots beat writers, like, man, this guy Jack Jones, am I wrong for saying this guy is actually legit? Like, he's gonna be a good player. It's like, oh man, you're right. You're spot on, man. Jack Jones is the truth. Okay. Looks like I got something right. No, Jack Jones is good. And I have to run grades on Jack Jones now because I did grade him last week, but I wanted to keep grades on, so I have to go back 4 weeks in because he's a player that I want to spotlight. And so you look at guys around the league, right? Like AJ Terrell, right? He was a All-Pro last year, right? And I was like, man, like he wasn't even sniffing in my system, right? To be honest with you, I didn't even rank him last year. So I was like, oh, this year I'm going to rank him. AJ Terrell, right? Atlanta Falcons. You know what he comes in at? 2.4. So my analysis was right. Like, this guy is not that great. Like, he's good, but he's not that great, right? Then you look at guys on the same team, because, you know, I'm watching film. Might as well grade the other freaking 10 players on the team. And I'm looking at Grady Jarrett. Grady Jarrett is playing at a first-team All-Pro level. When I knew Grady Jarrett, I've been grading him for years now. But Grady Jarrett is a guy who I kind of compare to Leroy Glover. If you guys don't know who Leroy Glover is, still wore number 97 too. He played for the Rams. I think he played for the Cowboys. Also played for the Saints for many years. But these guys are just underrated. But they're like the best at their positions, right? During that time with Leroy Glover, that Bryant Young, they had guys like John Randall there, right? So those guys were getting the hype. And so Warren Sapp, right? But you never heard too much about Leroy Glover. I mean, Leroy Glover is a beast, right? And same thing applies with Grady Jarrett. And Jerome Boger, you really screwed up that call, man. I'm just saying, man, Grady Jarrett should not. But then again, that hurt his grade in my grading system because even though Jerome Boger messed up that freaking roughing the passer penalty on Tom Brady, what should have been a sack for Grady Jarrett would have graded at a perfect 10 in my grading system. In fact, it got tailed back a little bit. Grady Jarrett is still my number one interior defensive lineman in my grading system. Now, is he better than Aaron Donald? No, he's not better than Aaron Dalton. I'm not saying that. But grading wise and grading every single snap, he is the number one interior defensive lineman. And he'll get my preseason vote for Pro Football Writers Association as a first team All-Pro. Because, yes, I have a vote for PFWA. And so Grady Jarrett comes in at a 7.6. Now, you want to look at what Aaron Donald's coming in at. It's 6.9. But then Aaron Donald gets doubled and triple team more than any other player in the league. So that grade is a little bit weighted in that he gets the pass because he's the focal point of teams' offensive schemes more times than not. And then you look at guys like Pittsburgh Steelers, right? You look at guys like Cam Hayward, who I just talked about, Alex Highsmith. You look at the defensive front seven. You look at guys like DeMarvin Leal, who I graded, right? I graded in college, and I said DeMarvin Leal is going to be a beast. I can't believe he lasted this long. Watch him shine. Same with George Pickens. Go check the Twitter receipts. I said it on Twitter too. Before these guys were, I was like, man, Steelers had probably the best draft in this draft class. You look at DeMarvin Leal. You look at guys they pick up like Larry Ogunjobi. You look at the defensive lineman Tyson Alulu is now a backup, right? And obviously Stephon Tuitt retired, so you kind of have to play a game of musical chairs. You still have Chris Wormley, who you traded for from the Baltimore Ravens, GM Eric DeCosta. But then you look at what they're doing, right? You have to look at the dynamics of what other teams are doing to kind of formulate this analysis. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, although they're not winning games, they're in it. Like, they're in it. They got blown out 38-3, but they're rolling in Kenny Pickett, who I actually like. I think Kenny Pickett's going to provide life this week. In fact, if you're a betting person, I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers covered against the Bucs. I wouldn't be surprised. And that's because they have offensive weapons. They have Deontay Johnson. They have Chase Claypool. They do a lot of things with George Pickens running on those 7-8-9 bangers where George Pickens just high point the ball and just win with effort. I mean, George Pickens to me is a top 5 wide receiver in the making. If you don't have him in your fantasy football team, you better pick him up. I'm telling you, George Pickens with Kenny Pickett, that connection, they will probably produce from here on out. If Kenny Pickett is the starting quarterback and that offensive line can stay clean and keep Kenny Pickett clean for more, which is a tough task, even though they got James Daniels. But they did bench Kendrick Green, which is a good thing because then they got Mason Cole in there. So anyways, that's for another story. But if they can keep him clean, I'm looking at George Pickens racking up at least 700-800 yards and maybe even 7-8 touchdowns. I'm telling you, George Pickens is the truth. Now, we all know what happened with that water bottle incident back in college. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check the Beast receipts on that. But I thought George Pickens was a monster back in college, and I still think he's a monster today. So to me, he's a top 5 wide receiver in the making. Just needs the target share, needs the offensive line, and obviously needs a quarterback who can deliver him the football in throwing in tight windows. So yeah, a lot of things to talk about. But no, yeah, Renfro's good. Okay, so we got some other things going on. Let's get to some. How do you feel about the Davante Adams legal jeopardy issue? Will the NFL suspend at least one game, as Sanjit speculates? That's a good question. This is a good question. I don't know. I didn't go to school for any legal stuff, so I'm not going to say one way or the other. I don't know how this works. Look, it happened. He apologized. The guy obviously filed a complaint, wants to get paid. I'm just joking. I don't know if he wants to get paid, but it happened. I don't know if he's going to get suspended. If it was me, do I think he should get suspended? I don't think he should get suspended, but that's just my opinion. That's just me being biased. We're both from the Bay Area, by the way. But no, I don't know. I just think it was one of those things where, I don't know. Suspend him for, I don't know. He could I don't know. I don't know about being suspended for one game. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I mean, it definitely can happen. I'm going based off, should he be suspended for one game if he is suspended? I don't know. I would say no, but that's just me. Leonard says, what do you think of Diablo's plan? Do you think we see Martinez coming in next game? Yeah, and Diablo's coming into his own, man. Like I talked about earlier, I think Devon Diablo is coming into his own. Talk to him a lot in the locker room, really gain some insight on exactly what's going through his head. And so anytime you're making that transition, I think the hardest transition to make from seeing things from a different lens, from a safety to a second level backer, is the deciphering between run and pass, and whether it be a RPO, whether it be a play action pass, whether it be a naked bootleg, whether it be some different personnel groupings. You're really going to have to pick up on these different tendencies. Whereas on the back end, you're the quarterback of the defense, right? So you're just the rules of engagement are basically on the third level. You're not so much concerned with run fit integrity and stuff like this because you're on the back end. Usually you're what's termed the eraser role, but if you're a free safety or even a strong safety, right? So it's a little bit different outlook and you're seeing things from a different lens when you're closer to the line of scrimmage. But at the end of the day, I think Divine Diablo is doing a very nice job. Now, he did struggle early on in pass coverage. I will say that, and I will admit that. But he is coming into his own. I think anytime you learn a new position, whether it be going from safety to a linebacker or even a defensive end in a 4-3 base to a 3-4 outside linebacker in a 34 front, there is some transition there because now you're not down in a 3-point stance, you're playing in a 2-point stance. And then from there, how are you playing your techniques, how you're leveraging your splits, how do you know whether it's a box and spilled? Are you familiar with the guys behind you? Because you're not going to turn around and see, hey, my cornerback is going to box it back inside to me, or he's going to spill it outside. So I better make sure that I kind of bubble over. So in case he misses that, I can contain that on the back end and do what's called a gap and replace. So there's a different level of concepts that you learn from third level to second level, from second level to first level. But at the end of the day, I think Divine Diablo is doing a very good job in terms of progression. Right now, is he playing at a Pro Bowl level or a starting caliber inside linebacker to where we can count on him week in and week out? I would say no. I would say he's not there yet. But what I will say is I love the progress in him, and I do think he's capable of being arguably a Pro Bowl inside linebacker. In fact, I even stated this before the season started. One of my predictions was I think Divine Diablo is going to be a tackling machine and lead the team in tackles. I'm not sure if he does right now, but if he does, checks off another beast receipt because I just think this guy is a football magnet. He's always around the football. It does a very good job there. So I have high hopes for Divine Diablo. I think he has Pro Bowl potential, and I think they have a real find there, especially with a guy who's learning different techniques and different positions. He's really doing a nice job under Coach Graham, and credit Coach Graham for putting him in the best position to make plays. So I hope that answers your question. All right. Salvador Bruno says Stephon Diggs says in an interview, Raiders are the best 1-4 team. You agree? Yeah, absolutely. They're the best 1-4 team. They should easily be 5-0. But again, it's like Bill Parcells says, your record is what you say you are. If you're a 1-4 team, you're a 1-4 team. So I'm not gonna. There is no silver lining in terms of, hey, we could have been 4-1, we could have been 3-2 if we didn't give up that overtime loss to the Arizona Cardinals and blow that 20-point lead. We could have been. Could have won a couple games here and there. No, man. The fact of the matter is the Raiders did not. They did not. And you have to win in all 4 quarters. You can't just play 3 quarters or 3.5 quarters and expect to win. This is the National Football League. You got to play all 4 quarters. Otherwise, you're going to lose at the end of every single game. Because, again, football's a game of 60 minutes, not 35, not 45. And so if you can't win in the 4th quarter, odds are you're not going to be winning that ball game because teams are going to slowly creep up, figure out your tendencies. People get tired mentally, physically. They may not be as rah-rah as they are in the 1st quarter. And so now you're missing tackles that you wouldn't normally miss in the 1st quarter. And so these things add up. Penalties pile up because you're mentally fatigued. So these false start penalties, the crowd gets involved later in the quarter because now they know it's crunch time. There's a lot of different dynamics that go into playing all 4 quarters. But at the end of the day, you have to play all 4 quarters. Otherwise, you're going to lose. You're going to lose. That's just the National Football League. Big Worm says Abram needs to be around the line of scrimmage. That's where he shines. What are you talking about? Oh, what am I talking about? I'm talking about my grading system. That's what I'm talking about. So whether or not he's at or near the line of scrimmage, grade every single snap, and you tell me if he can disengage from offensive linemen at the point of attack rather than boxing or spilling it. That's what I'm talking about. Big Worm. Salvador Bruno says, Beast, do you continue to see our offensive line getting better each week? Barr is a breath of fresh air to this offensive line. Right tackle still a problem. Yeah, right tackle is a problem, but I thought they did a nice job rolling in Thayer Munford there. I thought that Jermaine Illuminor, even though he got called for 2 penalties, by my count, I think he got called for a illegal chop block, which you don't see very often. And he also got flagged for, was it offensive holding or illegal block above the waist or something like that? One of those things. But no, Jermaine Illuminor is a solid right tackle. Do I think, and I talked about it with Sanji, I think he gives the team the best chance to win simply because of his veteran leadership. And so I like Thayer Munford. I think he is the future, but Jermaine Illuminor is definitely the present. And so both these guys have problems and mental lapses when it comes to penalties. But ultimately, if I was to have one last drive, who I would want as my right tackle right now, it would be Jermaine Illuminor. That's just my take. Everyone, what's up, Jesus? Everyone hit the like button and subscribe to all BEASTwriter social media. Yeah, thank you so much, man. Appreciate it. Salvatore Bruno says, who could we sign or draft to slow down catches to Travis Kelce? We need to prioritize him. You know, it's funny, Salvatore Bruno, but to get to your question, look, John Abraham, I keep saying John Abraham, Jonathan Abram, and guys like these, they did a nice job between the 20s, and coach talked about it. It's just when they got down inside the red zone, they were still rolling cover 1 and cover 0, and it just wasn't working. And so even though you kind of double Travis Kelce, like Coach Andy Reid did a nice job of scheming it up to where you have to bubble over in order to maintain stride on staying on the hip of Travis Kelce, right? Whether he gets friendly with the quarterback or whether he attacks the back pylon or the opposite backside pylon or whatever the case may be. And so when you see these things, it's really going to be one of those things where it's kind of like, okay, so how do you scheme it up? Do you bump him off the line of scrimmage? Do you just literally hold him and then pray that you don't get flagged for a defensive holding penalty? Like, how the heck do you stop Travis Kelce? And I think one way to neutralize that is it's a question that all other NFL teams have. That's why Travis Kelce is the best in the league, you know? So if it was me, I thought Coach Graham did a nice job. I wouldn't have rolled cover 1 or cover 0 down inside the red zone. And I think that's what Coach Graham did. I wouldn't have done that. I would have bracketed him down inside the red zone, gave some inside release or something like that. But in all honesty, I think that if you're gonna let Travis Kelce beat you, I think that's because let's face it, there's no DB on the Raiders roster that can keep up with Travis Kelce one-on-one. And that's not throwing shade at any of the Raiders defensive backs. That's not challenging them, saying you can and cannot do it. It's just the proof is in the pudding. 4 touchdowns were scored, and it was a cover 1 or a cover 0. So you tell me, based on what we saw on Monday night, that anyone can stay with Travis Kelce. In fact, even if you put Jalen Ramsey on Travis Kelce, right? Let's just say, arguably the best cornerback in the game, true shutdown corner. Let's say you put Jalen Ramsey on Travis Kelce one-on-one. Who would you rather take in winning that battle? If it was me, I'd say Travis Kelce. Why? Because if you're down inside the 5-yard line, all Travis Kelce has to do is box you out as if it was a game of football, going for a jump ball or going up for a rebound, boxing you out, using your leverage against you, and then Pat Mahomes can just throw it near the ground or in a place where Jalen Ramsey has to go through the receiver in order to make a play on that football. And so that's why it's so difficult to stop Travis Kelce. And that's why I'm not going to pin it on anyone, because he's just Travis Kelce. That's just Travis Kelce. That's Travis Kelce being Travis Kelce. Like, cool story, bro. But it is what it is. Like, the only thing you can do is hope to contain him. That's it. I'm not going to pin it on Coach Graham. I'm not going to do that. All right. Salvatore Bruce says the Raiders drafted Leroy Glover back in 1996. We had him. Yeah, Leroy Glover, again, was a beast. And he went to San Diego State. He went to my alma mater. So, San Diego State guy. Egalitarian 207 says, what's up, Ryan? What's going on, man? He said, Patrick Graham needs to make better adjustments. Defense is ranked 28th in the league in points per game. You know what? I think Coach Graham, I don't look too much at, I shouldn't say that because it does matter. It does matter. I will say this. I think Coach Graham is doing the best job that he has with the players that he has, if that makes sense. I'm not saying these players are not good. They're very good. And they're doing a very good job, especially the defensive front seven. But I think where they need help is maybe a little bit on the back end, right? So I think the cornerbacks, right, especially with Nate Hobbs being banged up, Rock Ya-Sin being banged up, you know, you have guys that really are banged up in that secondary, mainly the boundary cornerback position, and it's affecting the defensive scheme and play calls. Now, again, you're facing the Kansas City Chiefs twice a year. You're going to be facing the LA Chargers twice a year. You're going to be facing the Raiders have one of the toughest schedules if you look at their schedules, right? So there's a lot of teams that are coming up, and they average 27, 30 points a ball game. So to pin it on you have to take it with a grain of salt, because I think like if you're facing the Kansas City Chiefs 7 times a year, obviously the defensive scoring points per game is going to be like what, 26, 27 points per game that you allow if you're lucky. So That's why I think that yes, it does play a role, but I think the season's way too early for us to say that, Coach Graham needs to make some XYZ adjustments. I think Coach Graham is one of the smartest coaches out there, honestly. And so I think he does a really good job of scheming things up with the players that he have. And I talked to it with one of the beat writers earlier on, right? And I said, I just don't think they have the horses, right? They don't have all the horses, I should say. They have horses. They have Max Crosby. They have guys like Devon Diablo. They have guys like Rock Yassin, right? Nate Hobbs, Amik Robertson. You have guys like these, right? That can make plays on the football, can really impact the play. They have Bilal Nichols. They have Andrew Billings. The list goes on and on and on of the great players that they have on their team. But are there enough great players or enough good players or enough depth on their football team to sustain 4 quarters? And I think that's where you're seeing the issues. It's not on Coach Graham. I don't think it's on Coach Graham. Lencho says 20th in scoring defense, 21st in total defense, 25th in pass, 9th in run, 20th in yards allowed. Yeah. So in a nutshell, 20th in scoring defense, that's the only stat I care about, to be honest with you. I don't care about passing. I don't care about run defense. I don't care about any of that BS. Because at the end of the day, it's that scoreboard. If we have more points than the other team, that's all I care about. If we keep opponents from scoring and lighting up that scoreboard, that's all I care about. So scoring defense, 20th in scoring defense, that's not good. That is not good. That's not good. Tubok 100 says, what up, bro? What happens if we finish last place? We keep Carr another year or we move on and trade or whatever? Nah, you're going to keep Carr for the foreseeable future. He's not going anywhere. Now, they may draft a quarterback, but then again, you have Jarrett Stidham there who understands the offense. So if you roll in a rookie quarterback, let's say they draft in the top 5 and they want to go after a guy like Bryce Young, right? Let's roll tide, roll Bryce Young. But I'm a huge Roll Tide Roll fan if you guys haven't noticed. But no, if they went after a guy like Bryce Young, okay, so like where exactly does he fit in and where does Jarrett Stidham fit in? Because you traded for him, right? And so I really like Jarrett Stidham. I know that sounds crazy, but I like Jarrett Stidham a lot. I also like Derek Carr a lot. I know that sounds crazy, but I do like Derek Carr. People, either the Raider Nation, my first year, you either love Derek Carr or you hate Derek Carr. There's no in between. It's either a love. It's not even a love-hate relationship. It's like I love Derek Carr or I hate Derek Carr. I'm on the line of I love Derek Carr because I just like what he brings to the table. Now, is he going to be taking this team to the Super Bowl? I mean, we don't know yet. And again, this is my first year covering it, but from all signs that I like Derek Carr. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he's a top, I wouldn't say top, I would say definitely a top 15 quarterback, maybe even top 10, maybe, I don't know. I would say definitely top 12, 15 quarterbacks. So there's a lot of different quarterbacks you can choose from. I mean, let's face it, the Dolphins, who are they starting? Well, it's a third stringer, but I mean, like you look around the league, right? Like who would you want, Davis Mills or do you want Derek Carr, right? Like there's so many other quarterbacks you can pull from when I run these game grades. So is he better than Kirk Cousins? I mean, same thing with the Minnesota Vikings fans. They're like, oh, man, we love Kirk Cousins or we hate Kirk Cousins. There's no in between. Same thing with Jimmy Garoppolo. I covered the 49ers. Oh, we love Jimmy Garoppolo. Oh, we hate Jimmy Garoppolo. Oh, we love Trey Lance. Oh, but Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, what? Like, it's just every team has this issue. And so, like, I don't know. I'm not going to say that the Raiders should move on. I think they should keep Derek Carr. That's just me. Now all the Derek Carr haters are like, "Oh man, you are horrible! Like, what are you doing?" I don't know. I think it's interesting that there's such a huge debate on whether they should trade Derek Carr or keep Derek Carr or I don't know, draft a quarterback. It's like, man, the guy got paid. Like, I don't think he's going anywhere, whether you like it or not, whether you like him or not. Jesse Cardenas says, salute fam. Thank you. All right. If you guys also like, there's some questions here on how you guys can support me. I'm just going to put this up here. If you guys want to go ahead and support it, there is a super chat and super sticker icon on the live stream. You guys can go ahead and send a donation. I'm going to be pulling the money from and running giveaways for all you guys, for everyone that subscribes to the channel and also donates. Also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to hit up some of these road games. Obviously, they cost over $1,000. So all the money that I get from the live streams will go directly to that. Because obviously, if you're watching this, you like my coverage and so forth. So I'm putting a savings account for everything that we make here on the YouTube channel. And that will help. John, play here. That will help channel everything to those away games, and everything left over, if there is anything left over, will be funneled back to you guys on the end of the year for these giveaways. So a lot of cool things. Thank you so much, Kevin Lurker. I appreciate it, man. He said, what's good, Beast? What are your thoughts on Waller that you can share? You know, it's interesting. I was asked this question by Sanjeet yesterday, and he says, like, you know, there's some people who are saying that Darren Waller's head's not in, and like he kind of checked out. And I was like, no, man. Like, I actually talked to Darren Waller personally. I think it was, what's today? What day is it today? Is it today Wednesday? I think it was on Friday. Think it was on Friday. And so, you know, we just had a friendly conversation, right? Just a casual conversation. And so I was talking to him and just kind of like seeing where he was at. And I don't see any difference in Darren Waller from what I see in practice, preparation, and everything in between. Look, the Raiders would not have re-signed Darren Waller to that long contract extension if they didn't think that he had the passion and love for the football game. Because that's ultimately what they want. That's the Bill Belichick way. That's the Patriot way. That's the Raider way, right? In fact, that's the winning way. You don't want to extend players where you have to second guess whether or not they're going to be in the playbook, Kyler Murray. You want players who don't have to be babysat to know, hey, look, he's on top of his diet. He's on top of his sleeping patterns. He's on top of learning the plays. He's on top of everything. He's the first one in, last one out. His work ethic is unquestioned. These are what you look for, right? When formulating the Raider way culture. Nothing has changed from Darren Waller from the first day I met Darren Waller. He is that guy. So for anyone to say that he checked out, his head's not into it, whatever the case may be, I will challenge that person straight up. In fact, I would have him on the live stream and be like, you know what? Please explain. Go. What are you seeing on a daily basis? Because I see Darren Waller every day. Do you? Like, I see him in practice. I see him. I like, this is what we do, right? And so, like, for anyone to go out and say, like, hey, you know, Darren Waller's head's not into it, he kind of looks like he checked out. It's like, why? Let's be honest about this, okay? If they were 4-1, would we care if he checked out anyways? Not me. I'm not saying me, but I'm just saying, would the fans care? No, because they'd be 4-1. But because they're losing, people are starting to nitpick different things. Oh, he should have caught that ball. Okay, you go and try to catch that ball going across the middle when it's thrown on the, you know, when Derek Carr led him into the defensive back. I'm not saying this is not on Derek Carr, obviously, but I mean, there's plays, right, where people are saying, blaming Darren Waller. Well, it takes two to tango. And so that's why you got to see it from both sides. It's simple for us from an outsider's perspective to kind of just blame one person. I think that Darren Waller is a all-pro tight end. Said it since day one, even before covering the Las Vegas Raiders, right? I think Darren Waller is a top 5 tight end, even arguably top 3 tight end. I think Darren Waller is one of those guys who you need on a football team, especially in today's NFL. I think Darren Waller is going to be fine. I think that Raider Nation is going to continue to either ride him or be on him because he just got paid. But just remember, Darren Waller is Darren Waller. He got paid for a reason by GM Dave Ziegler and head coach Josh McDaniels. So for anyone to say that he checked out, I would challenge that, because that's not the Raider way. They wouldn't do the legwork on a player, sign into an extension to have that player be mindful of checking out at any point during the season. I just don't see it. But yeah, thank you so much, Kevin Looker, for the super chat, man. I appreciate the love and support, man. You're the man. Thank you so much, Kevin. And I always love talking to you on the live streams and also in the post streams on my videos when I post player coach interviews. So again, yeah, thank you so much. And again, it really means a lot when you guys support me here on YouTube, because this is my number one social media platform that I use. I like using this platform. I think it's a good way for us to engage with each other, and where I can kind of answer questions live stream or even post stream. And so it really keeps us on topic. I like the bye week because it gives me time to kind of catch up on legwork, right? And so when we talk about things like Chandler Jones being the 11th highest paid edge rusher, and then you look at guys, okay, well, he's 11th highest paid edge rusher, but then how does that compare to around the rest of the guys around the league? Well, luckily you have me who run grades, right? Eric Arnstead got paid for a 5-year, $85 million contract. He's been underperforming that contract. No surprise here, but He's another guy. He's right in that line of thinking with Chandler Jones, right? Shaquille Barrett, right? Where has he been this year, right? So like he got paid right smack in the middle between Eric Armstead and Chandler Jones. So you can kind of see around the league. It's like, is the Chandler Jones treatment unfair? Because if you look around the league, the guys I just mentioned who are in that cluster of financials, they're struggling too. So I don't know. But then I go and look at guys like Danielle Hunter, who I really liked, right? And he'd been dealing with a neck injury a few years back, and so or a couple years back. Actually, I think it was last year. He was dealing with a neck injury. He's playing at a all-pro level in my grading system before he got hurt. But you look at guys like Danielle Hunter, right, dealing with a neck and also a pec injury, right? And so you look at guys like that, and like, okay, well, he got injured week 9 last year, but he gets paid how much, right? Danielle Hunter coming out of LSU, right? I thought the Niners should have went after him when he came out. Check the receipts. $14.4 million APY compared to $17 million. So there's only discrepancy of what, if you kind of round up, $2.6 million, right? So I don't know. Do I think that Chandler Jones was a little bit overpaid? I do believe so. But do I understand why GM Dave Ziegler went out and got a guy like Chandler Jones? I do. So, I can kind of see both sides to it. But at the end of the day, Chandler Jones, you have to kind of mix and match and play better than the 5.2 grade than what I'm giving you. I mean, you can't be average. My man JP, who's an Arizona Cardinals fan, said Chandler Jones had 5 sacks in one game, then got 5.5 the rest of the season. There you go. See, that's what I'm saying. He'll give you 5 sacks in the game and then disappear for the next 7. Like, that's who Chandler Jones is. Now watch me be wrong and watch him rack up like 2 sacks for the rest of the year and be like, "Oh, BEASTwriter is a hater." No, I'm not a hater. I'm just going based on past behavior, right? The best predictor of future behavior is looking at delving into the past, and so that's what we see in the past. And I'm not saying this. This is my man JP, who's an Arizona Cardinals fan, diehard Arizona Cardinals fan. Follow Chandler Jones, and I told JP, I was like, "Hey, Chandler Jones isn't that great," and he gives up a lot in run fit integrity. And so, like, I think his numbers are a little bit inflated. The hype's a little bit inflated, but I do like what he brings off the field in terms of his leadership presence and preparation to the game on a weekly basis. And that's exactly what we're seeing with the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, I will say that Chandler Jones is coming to his own. I did say he's going to rack up 4 or 5 sacks in the next 6-game span. I'm putting that beast receipt out there. I think he's going to rack up 4 or 5 sacks in the next 6-game span, and then that will take off the heat off Chandler Jones. And now then depending on if the Raiders are winning or losing, then if they're losing, they're gonna let's ride someone else now. Who else could be the problem? Oh, it's Coach McDaniels. He's the problem. But what if the team's losing by 3 points or less? Like, is it the coach's problem or is it execution? I'm just saying we have to take it with a grain of salt. Salvatore Bruno says Raider fans love-hate relationship. Derek Carr reminds me of San Francisco fans' feeling of Alex Smith. I thought Alex was decent. San Francisco fans, true. I was a 49er fan for you guys who don't know, and I was one of the guys who didn't like Alex Smith. I'll just go on record. In fact, you remember when at the game where they were chanting, "We want Carr, we want Carr"? Yeah, I was one of the fans. Well, I was a kid. I knew the difference. Anyways, I was the one that was saying, "We want Carr, we want." And then what happened? Jim Harbaugh comes in. Alex Smith's career gets revived. I become a huge Alex Smith supporter. Then Colin Kaepernick came in. I was like, I like Colin Kaepernick more than I like Alex Smith. And then he shredded the freaking Green Bay Packers defense like fondue, made some fondue out of it. Rushed for 181 rushing yards. I was at that game. I had front row season tickets on the 20-yard line in lower box section 14. Before covering the 49ers as a beat writer, I was a diehard Niner fan, known as a diehard Niner fan. And so, yeah, I remember this like it was yesterday. I remember also it was a pick 6 in that game. And I believe, I don't know who the cornerback was. I want to say it was Casey Hayward. Anyways, it was somebody who took it to the house right in front of me. I was like, gosh dang, we're going to lose this ball game. It's already 7-0 on the pick 6. Thanks, Colin Kaepernick. And then, yeah, they came back and won. But yeah, that was, they couldn't do anything. They couldn't stop. I don't know why people don't use the scrape exchange going against that zone read. I just don't understand it. If you're playing against a zone read, use the scrape exchange so you take the guesswork out of it with those edge defenders. Like, one guy takes on the running back, the other guy takes on the quarterback. How hard is it? from box to spill. It's a simple concept. But then when you run RPO out of it, like the Jacksonville Jaguars could do with Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence, now you have issues because now you have to account for the third thing, which is the pass. I don't know. It's not as easy as people make it out. Oh, they should just do this. It's like, no, man. Like it's a lot more difficult when you watch the game film. Do you think John Simpson is in the doghouse or Alex Bars is just significantly outplaying him? Jacobs has been running great since Bars became guard. Yes, I said this on Sanjeev's channel. I think the one common denominator is Alex Bars, and I talk to Alex Bars just like I do with Darren Waller and a few other guys on a daily basis. And Alex Bars is funny. By the way, Alex Bars has a good sense of humor. Has a funny sense of humor. That guy, I always love talking to Alex Bars. He's a funny guy. But Alex Bars is playing really well. Like I'm really happy for the guy. I think he's going to be the entrance starter moving forward because the common denominator with Josh Jacobs' success, even though they're running the football more and Jakob Johnson's being used more and they're using Thayer Munford as an extra offensive lineman this past week. But the one common denominator from last week to this week is Alex Bars. Now, he was playing left guard last week, moved over to the right side. So now he can play both. People didn't really catch that, but that's what happened, right? I have notes. I watch game film. And so that's what you saw. And that's why I was like, wait, why is Dylan Parham playing on the opposite side that it was previously? And, well, they just switched. And I thought that was interesting because now what GM Dave Ziegler and Coach McDaniels are doing is saying, okay, we want to formulate the best five, but is Alex Bars better suited on the right side or the left side? Is Dylan Parham better suited on the right side or the left side? So let's go ahead and switch and see how they do and then run grades, and then we can kind of go from there going into the bye week against the Houston Texans. Yeah, I don't know but I wouldn't say John Simpson's in the doghouse. He seemed to be in good spirits when I saw him last week, so I don't think he's in the doghouse. I just think that they're trying to figure out who the best five is. And to be honest with you, if he was in the doghouse, I would not know because I haven't heard anything from Raiders headquarters about that. Salvador Bruno says Raider fans love. Oh yeah, we saw this one already. He said, damn, dude, should have kept that diehard Niner fan thing low key. Diehard Raider fans ain't going to be fond of that. Well, it's not that hard to find. You can literally Google me and stuff will pop up. So it's been known for like what, 20 years now or however long. So it's not that and most Raider fans, actually all the Raider fans know that. So they knew I came from the San Francisco 49ers and I was once known as a diehard Niner fan before covering the team as a beat writer. And now obviously I'm not a diehard Niner fan. I'm not a fan of any team because I cover the NFL. Okay, so the diehard black hole thing is not the same. Oh, since they moved to Vegas. I wish it was. I never witnessed the black hole, to be honest with you. I would love to have seen that back in Oakland. But Austin Martinez says, I like Bars, man. The guy was ready to fight some of the Chiefs when things got testy. Yeah, you know what? That's what I love about Alex Bars is he's friendly and goofy off the field. Like he's a funny guy. Like he's a funny guy, you know, really approachable, really good interviews, gets good insight. I like Alex, very smart. That's one thing I noticed about Alex Bars. He's really smart. But then on the field, man, you saw this guy have a nasty mean streak. And I think that's what the Raiders need. I think they need to go back to that Richie Incognito and the Kevin Gogan days of having that nasty mean streak, right? You want to have a guy that has a nasty mean streak. And so I think when you have a guy like Alex Bars and Jakob Johnson could be that guy too. He's the enforcer. I talked to him about it. He's like, yeah, man, I protect my guys, man. Those are my guys. I protect them. I block for them. And obviously I stand up for them. That's my guys, right? And so you want guys who kind of have that nasty mean streak. I think that, and Dylan Parham has a nasty mean streak too. Don't get it twisted. He's a nice guy, but I told him, I was like, man, on the field, you're kind of different, bro. Like you kind of mean. He kind of laughed at me. And I also told him this. I was like, man, you're really mature for your age, man. I know I'm a lot older than you. And he started laughing. I was like, where do you get that maturity at? And he's like, oh man, it's just, and then he tells me and explains the story. But he says, I could be goofy sometimes, but no. Dylan Parham is another guy who has a nasty mean streak. Don't get it twisted. Dylan Parham can mix it up along with Alex Bars. Both those guys I like that can mix it up. I like that. I like that fight. I guess you can call me kind of a throwback guy, but if someone's pushing around my teammates, I'm the first one to go in there and put my nose in there and be like, okay, you want to go? Let's go. Like, I ain't scared of you. Like, let's go. Like, everybody knows that about me. And I did get in a few fights during my playing days in high school and college, but yeah, it was nothing. It was nothing that I started. I was just one of those guys that stood up for my guys, or someone did something dirty, like if someone undercut me or whatever the case may be, tried to attack my legs, like doing a chop block or some kind of BS like that, or tried to like purposely injure me. Yeah, I'm gonna throw a haymaker. Like, yeah, like I'm gonna freaking get you on the football field one way or the other. And that's football. Kevin Lurker says everyone's welcome on the dark side. Yeah, man, dark side of BEASTwriter is where it's at, bro. That's what I'm saying. Okay, was Simpson even being subbed in during the game, or was Bars at left guard all game? Bars was at left guard all game. I didn't see any subs, and that's pretty much it. You know, because when you run the grades, uh, that's what I saw. That's what I saw. That's what I saw. So I didn't see John Simpson in the game at all. All right, so why do we use our edges like we use our O-line? Kuntz needs more snaps, and why not try Tayshaun Bauer? You know, it's interesting. I talked to Malcolm Kuntz the other day, and I talked to him about taking those mental reps that I saw him take in practice, and the limited sample size to pull from when you're running, whether it be running film or so forth. And I'm like, man, you really dominated the preseason and going into the season, haven't really played much. How do you stay mentally prepared? And it's like, you just got to stay mentally prepared. And physically, I get it. It's just mentally, you got to be prepared for, because at any point your name can be called. And so he's explained to me the ins and outs of that. And I asked him to describe his game in one word. He said ability. So, the coach asked me to do one thing, I can do it. They asked me to do another thing, I can do that. So I said, okay, well, if your time is coming, how do you stay ready? He's like, you prepare as if you're the starter. So why he's not getting snaps, I'm not too sure about that. I'm not the coach, so I don't know. And I'm pretty sure if I asked the coach, he wouldn't give me the exact reason anyways. But there has to be some silver lining as to why he's not. Maybe he has to earn the reps. Maybe other guys are stepping up in place. Maybe because you paid Chandler Jones $17 million, so you have to play him because he gets paid $17 million a year. So if you don't play him on a snap-by-snap basis, how much is he getting paid per snap count? I mean, I don't know. You have to look at all that stuff. But yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll definitely be interesting. Egalitarian says, Ryan, how long do you think Davante Adams will be suspended? I don't know. I have no idea. Yeah, I have no idea about that. It'd be interesting though to find out if and when that happens. But I don't know. I have no idea how that's going to play out. I just think that Austin Martinez says, "Did you play for San Diego?" I did not play for San Diego State. I did play competitively intramurally in my fraternity, Phi Kappa Psi, holla at your boy. We were champions 3 years in a row for IFC, and we played with Division I talent, which obviously some of the players in my fraternity, some of my Phi Psi brothers were in my fraternity, played for D1, and we would play tackle. So technically, yes, and technically, but officially, no. And I actually dislocated my shoulder. How I have a funny story about this. And my guy, Brent, who actually lives here in Vegas, and one of my fraternity brothers and pledge brothers, we were playing. And so I actually dislocated. It's still messed up. Both these shoulders are messed up. It's because we would play tackle against D1 talent, and we would not care. Like we would just play tackle, and it was a unwritten rule that we were going to play tackle. Another team knew we were going to play tackle. They wanted to play tackle, and yeah, a lot of people got injured in that game. Like injuries that are still with us today. So that's a great story. Yeah, don't do that, kids. You'll get hurt long term. I just hope Davante Adams is not suspended. Yeah, me too. I hope Davante Adams is not suspended as well. That would be all bad. That'd be all bad. I don't think he should be suspended either. But whatever. That's not up to me to decide. But yeah, if you guys like what I have to say, please give it a thumbs up and go ahead and like the channel. But it was one of those things where, like I said, when you watch the game film and you see whether Parham or Bars are switching left guard, right guard, you really can see the dynamics between the two. And so that's why I'm I'm looking at it and I'm running grades and I see this. And in week 4, let's just go back in week 4, right? So in week 4 against the Denver Broncos, here in my note, Alex Pars started in place of John Simpson at left guard, right? And so right guard was Dylan Parham. Now you switch the two, and now at right guard you had Alex Pars, right? And then you had Dylan Parham at left guard. So again, that's what you were talking about, Giovanni Perez, when you say wasn't Parham. Yes, that is very true, and I explained that earlier. So you want to see a mix and match there, right? You want to see a mix and match, and so that's what you saw there. All right, it was pretty messed up for Adams to be suspended when Kamara fractured someone's eye socket during the Pro Bowl events last year and is playing this year. Interesting, Austin. Egalitarian says, Ryan, do you think the Raiders will go on a tear after the bye week? I think if I was a betting man, I think they win 4 out of their next 6 games. I really do. I think they win 4 out of their next 6 games. I think they're going to go on a tear. I think they're going to, after this bye week, they're going to get healthy and they're going to formulate what went wrong over the last 5 weeks, the first 5 weeks of the year, regroup, beat the Houston Texans, right? They're going to beat the Houston Texans. And from then on, it's going to be, okay, how do we compile these wins, not get too high, not get too low, stay even keel, but then also learn from these wins. And so how do we not be a repeat offender of blowing these double-digit losses that we did in the first half of the season, and then how we carry that on into the late half of the season. So I think that's what you're going to see from Coach McDaniels, because, again, I think Coach McDaniels and GM Dave Ziegler, if you want to talk the GM head coaching duo, I think they're top 5 in the league. That's just me. And I've said it since day one. Even when I covered the Niners as a beat writer and they had a head coach opening, I said Josh McDaniels should be the guy. I said he should be the guy. All right. Tupac says, Parham at center next year, or we continue with James? That's a great question. At some point, we're going to have to see Dylan Parham at center. I think ideally Dylan Parham could be the starting center. I would like to see him at starting center, but I also can see why they would roll with Andre James if you want to formulate the best 5 and kind of allocate some resources and some funds that you have next year to other positions. It's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out, but I would like to see Dylan Parham at center. Yeah, I would like. But again, like, who do you have? Who's going to plug in play at right guard then, or left guard, whatever the case may be, right? So it's just, do you roll back John Simpson or do you go somewhere Lester Cotton? I mean, what's going on? Like, what are we doing, right? Egalitarian says, I don't think that Raiders will beat the Texans, Saints, Jaguars, Seahawks, and Broncos coming out of the bye week. I agree with that. I think the Jaguars are not as bad as people make them out to be. I think the Seahawks are scary, having covering them because I covered the San Francisco 49ers. I don't think they're as bad as people make them out to be. I think their offense can be very scary. In fact, if for you fantasy football owners out there, Kenneth Murray, that's a Chargers linebacker out of Oklahoma. I'm thinking of Kenneth Walker, all right? So out of Michigan State, right? This guy is a guy who I think is going to be a beast. I like him. I like what he does in the Seattle Seahawks scheme. I think he's going to be a great player. Now, Rashad Penny went out. You roll in Walker. I think this guy's going to be a hell of a running back. He's going to be a scary running back to face, especially against that Raiders defense. But at the end of the day, I think I like that kid. I like that rookie. I think he's good. There's a lot of good things when I reevaluate the game film of him coming out, and he's going to be one of those players that people are going to talk about. So if you're in fantasy football and he's a running back, I would say take this guy. And then you can thank me later and send me a super chat or super sticker if you win your week. All right. Austin Martinez says, I listen to a lot of YouTubers, probably shouldn't, from a lot of different teams, and it's very frustrating to hear guys calling McDaniels stupid head coach and the Raiders as non-contenders. Yeah, you know what? It's everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I don't know why people would say that. Maybe because they don't watch film like I do. I'm joking. I don't know. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I just think that Coach McDaniels is fine. I think that the Raiders are fine. And I'm not hitting the panic button anytime soon. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this live stream. I hope you guys liked what I had to say. If you did, please hit the subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner of your screen as you stay up to date on all things Beast in real time. Also, give this video a thumbs up. It do me a solid. I know you guys have been watching it. We have around 30 people on this live stream. So if all 30 of you guys can go ahead and hit the like button, that'd be greatly appreciated. Also, after this video concludes, there is a donate button. It's a heart icon. If you'd like to donate to the channel, you guys can do so straight from there as well. So again, thank you everyone for coming on to the show, asking your YouTube questions, and hopefully I can better assess the team moving forward for you as we go ahead and move on after the bye week. Thank you so much, Kevin Lurker, for the super chat and super sticker. I really appreciate it, man. And you've been doing nothing but supporting me since day one, and nothing but love from you. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I had a lot of fun. Stay tuned for the next live stream as we keep things hot here in the dark side of BEASTwriter family, where social media engagement is encouraged. You guys are awesome. Happy Wednesday. I'll be on hopefully tomorrow as we provide another live stream on the Las Vegas Raiders. And I don't know what I'm going to talk about yet, but we're going to figure that out. Stay tuned for tomorrow. Take care for now. BEASTwriter out.